the way we will solve the intractable problems facing our planet is a dramatic proliferation of change makers everywhere, in every community, because that's where we need it. Now you'll say, well, how? How do we do that? The how is through social entrepreneurship. For those of you who've read the book that David and I were asked to write by Oxford University Press, you'll know that we actually think about social entrepreneurship as a process, as a way to organize problem-solving energy. And that social entrepreneurship 3.0, to use the language of the web, is to unleash, dramatically unleash human potential so that everybody can be a change maker. Every time we solve a problem, there are unintended consequences. So even if we succeed in doing everything that the last panel talked about, and our opening speaker, Neville, even if we solve all of those problems, there will be new ones the next day. Of that, I'm certain. And anybody who's raised children or family knows that, life is a journey and things happen along the way. In the early days of social entrepreneurship 1.0, we were focused very much on finding the social entrepreneur, and we've almost made a cult of rock stars. There was all about finding them, supporting them, naming it, so there was a lot of fights about, well, who is one, what are we talking about? Those days really, thankfully, have moved on. The second era, I would say, of social entrepreneurship 2.0 was a focus on the organization. And it was really about bringing business skills into the do-gooder social justice communities. And so there was a lot of focus on management and modeling and metrics and scaling and use of business principles and skills for social ills. 3.0 really takes it to a completely different level. And that's where I think we are now, where it's disaggregated, decentralized, and yet integrated and connected by technology, as you heard, some of those solutions. But fundamentally, I think social entrepreneurship is unlocking human potential in a way that we have not witnessed before on our planet, in our communities and in communities all around the world. So the story that I want to talk to you about is also a tri-sector story, but it's not business, government, and civil society. Instead, I would say it's the individual, the organization, and movements. And I'll start with myself. It took me a long time, from being born in New Orleans and raised in Lafayette, finding a way to get educated, to come to a place where today I can say, I'm a social entrepreneur. How did I get there? I'm a social entrepreneur that uses tools, not the hammer that Greg talked about, not the corporation that Neville talked about. I use the tools of magic. Magic, like Martha Beck talks about it. Wordlessness, oneness, imagination, and creativity. Okay, I'm out there, right? Let me tell you a story. My 30th birthday, it was a long time ago. I was working in the World Trade Center for the landlord, the Port Authority, getting to do a very cool thing, helping to create and run the first export trading company in the US, organized by a quasi-public conglomerate. In those days, in the olden days, we were all emulating the Japanese, and Shogoshoshas, export trading companies, were a great breakthrough idea. So we were trying to study them because what was our problem in New York and New Jersey? Empty containers were our biggest export in our marine terminals and air terminals. Our manufacturing base was eroding, and we thought, how on earth are we going to help the small business community become more global? and begin to start connecting with world markets, because we're competing with imported products made everywhere around the world. So how do we help small business export? I got caught up with that idea after doing the smallest project the port ever did, an urban hydroponics farm, but that's another story. I'm there working, I'm getting ready to turn 30, and I call one of my old professors at Harvard, and I say, I want to go to Africa. It's my dream. Where do I go? He says, oh, go talk to my friend Johnny Gerhardt at Ford Foundation. He knows all the cool places. He's a birder, and Pamela's not here, but she's a great birder. We were just talking. So I was using my networks to plan my party. I go in. This is like October, I think, in 1986. I know many of you weren't born yet, but, you know, humor me. So I'm going there, I'm like, yeah, I heard you know all the cool places in Africa. Where should I go? This is before the internet, right? You couldn't just Google that. You had to ask people. And he says, oh, I'm glad to meet you. I hope you don't mind, but Charles Bailey's in town from Bangladesh, our office there, and we're recruiting somebody, and we thought you might be interested. And I was like, no. I'm not here for a job interview. I'm planning my party. See, I'm turning 30, and I said, well, just listen. We think you might have some important skills. And I said, look, I know nothing about Bangladesh. I have the album. That's it. You'll hear more about the concert for Bangladesh later. But there I was, completely just on another track. The short version of this long story is I went to Africa, very cool place. It was my birthday. It was a full moon. And all of a sudden, elephants started coming. I'm in the middle of this lodge, Safari Park Lodge, and I started counting. And there were 30 elephants that came up to me that night as I'm standing on the rail. And you know, elephants don't talk, they make noise, but that's where wordlessness comes in. In listening to the elephants, I heard this huge message to just leap. Leap into what seemed like a void. Entrepreneurs often are told, leap and you'll find your footing on the way down, or you'll find life will provide the net, or whatever it is. It's that moment of risk-taking where in your heart, that little voice, or the elephants, or whatever, tells you, follow it. So I did. I went to Bangladesh, 30 years old, totally changed my life. Now, that's where I was introduced to the word social entrepreneurship, because Bill Drayton, the founder of Ashoka, came and he was looking for support and wanted to start the money, and he described who was a social entrepreneur, and I said, oh, you mean people like Muhammad Yunus, the founder of Grameen Bank, or Fazli Abed, the founder of BRAC? Yeah, he says. I said, oh, well, that's a no-brainer. You want to help find people who are like them early on in their career and help blow wind under their wings. He's like, yeah. I said, no-brainer. Great idea. So I funded Ashoka to start in Bangladesh, their first foundation funding. I was working for the Ford Foundation, if I didn't tell you that part of it, and got to be connected in helping to scale up an indigenously driven movement for microfinance and the involvement of poor people in solving their own problems, mainly women, who are catalysts of change in their families, in their own lives, in their communities. And that was better than any PhD. That was the real-world laboratory. Now, you probably know that Muhammad Yunus and Grameen Bank won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2006. And I had the good fortune to be connected, and still am on the board of the Grameen Foundation here in the US. So when we won the Nobel, the founder of BRAC said, Susan, you got to help us too. Help start a BRAC USA. Because nobody in your country has even heard of BRAC. It's true, right? I mean, show of hands. Anybody hear of BRAC before coming today? Probably not. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4. Not many. It's not a household name. Even 5, 6 years into this, it's not. But the same kind of personal story, like Yunus's story, exists. And if you think about Bangladesh, a country that was born out of a war in 1971, that had a concert that George Harrison mobilized, support for, and invented a new genre of Live Aid type concerts. It also gave birth to very creative thinking around financial services and social enterprise. So today, Abed has created what is reportedly the largest NGO development organization in the world. Paul Collier calls it a social enterprise. BRAC was invented by an accountant, so I'll give you BRAC by the numbers. Started in 1972, post-war Bangladesh, as a little relief project with Abed's own money. Quickly ran out. As the panel before was saying, charity doesn't last long, so you've got to mobilize others of your own pocket, right? Oxfam came in as the next donor. Eventually, though, they knew that was going to run out, so immediately started thinking, how do we internalize some of these costs? If we're going to be doing education, why not have our own printing press? So in 1972, at the birth of the organization already, had started thinking about developing social enterprises and how to create self-sufficiency. Also, 1975 created the first research and evaluation department, not because external donors wanted to audit and know, because they wanted to know what was effective. 1976, Abed's wife dies in childbirth. This is a man who could have been a billionaire himself. He had a British passport. He didn't need to be living there. She died because of complications that could have been solved had they been in a hospital environment in this country or in Britain. That kind of pain was channeled into building what is today a nonprofit organization that has a $1.2 billion balance sheet and touches the lives of 126 million people in Bangladesh and 10 other countries in Asia and Africa. And I said, I've got a huge problem. I don't know how to tell our story because it's complicated. Poverty is complicated. There are a lot of facets. You heard somebody referring to BRAC's program with toilets and sanitation. Yes, we are committed to ending open defecation. As a woman, I know the most important thing I need is a toilet when I need it, right? And yet, they don't exist for the people that we work for. Clean water got talked about a lot. And God knows we're focused a lot on the intersections of water and health. All of it ultimately, though, is unlocked when people can earn a living. It's not just about income. As Greg was saying, it's also about dignity, its identity, its expression, its creativity. It's all the things that we know we want in our lives. It's a way to have health and wealth and well-being and to participate in being active citizens. And that's why I suggest that, the US Constitution got it right. It ceded all power that's not given to the states or the federal government to who? Citizens, to us, to you and to me. And that is the sector that social entrepreneurship has claimed as our inherent right to act. But social entrepreneurship is actually transforming business. It's transforming government. It's transforming academia. It is transforming the NGO world. It is using the powers of technology in ways that we haven't. It's connected to movements. I know that one of the most important parts of the last few years of my own journey was discovering that it's not enough to educate our minds. It's not enough to have our hands busy, whether it's with hammers and saws, mops and brooms, or tweeting away on BlackBerries. I know that educating the heart is the most important part of our tri-sector learning journey. And it was through a great gift that we were able to go to a Dalai Lama convened Educating the Heart conference just a few years back. And I realized the importance of us integrating social and emotional learning into all the work that we're doing with the school children. We've got 1.1 million children in school right now in Afghanistan and Bangladesh and South Sudan, all over, as well as the 100,000 staff people. So when you ask the question, how to change the world, my answer is change myself. Because I know when I change myself, I change the wake I leave in the world. Thank you.